She was going to stand up and sing in her beautiful voice as Drupadi. All the women warriors were going to rise from the ashes, and all together in unison they were going to walk forward towards the audience, making a statement without words.
One day, my son Nick said, everybody's kind of amazed at how much I know about the Mahabharata, but I'd really like to know more about Drupadi. I would really like to see you do a project focusing on her. And I think Emiko would be a great person to play Drupadi.
And this is Drupadi. She's here with me right now. She's very strong and very smart. And she has 5 husbands, which could be awesome, but it could not be awesome. But we really had to think a lot about that. I asked a lot of people about that. I grew up around Indonesian performing arts and grew up with the story of the Mahabharata and a lot of the heroes of that story, like Arjuna and Bhima and Karna, these complex characters. A lot of them are heroes that I grew up with and thought a lot about as I was growing up. But I came to realize these female characters of the Mahabharata, I didn't spend so much time thinking about as I was growing up. And so when we began to think about focusing on a female character of the Mahabharata, it was like, wow, I had to pause and realize that I hadn't grown up thinking about those characters, and I really had to do quite a bit of research and ask a lot of questions.
One decision that was a little unusual, but I think essential to the success of the writing, was to return to the bones of the Indian text rather than the way the story is developed into many digressive, smaller stories in the Indonesian tradition, to focus on the foundational trunk stories as opposed to the branch and leaf stories. It's the women who are movers of the epic, the narrative engine that drives the story.
Think about how to really bring across the character of this really archetypal woman. We have collaborated with Sekar Jaya on significant projects 5 or 6 or 7 or more times, and each time we have kind of challenged ourselves to come up with a new way of presenting shadows that was close to tradition but also expanded the possibilities.
The nature of the projected shadow medium, both the extreme compression arising from technical constraints of combining shadow puppets and dancers, and the understanding that when you're working like this in a strongly visual medium, there are moments that are best expressed visually, and the challenge is to use language to set them up but then hand off, and then other moments when the poetry carries it rather than the visuals.
I realized that given our circumstances and the amount of time we had, the amount of people we had, that the most impressive thing we could do was to use the actors themselves as shadow casters and cast their shadows onto the back wall of the theater so that they would be really, really huge. And it took a lot of practice and a lot of trial and error for them until they began to get the idea that they weren't in their own bodies. They were acting in shadow. And they had their backs to the audience, but they were still expressing amazing amounts of emotion and feeling.
Proyek Drupadi ini saya pakai topeng seperti bingung. Tapi saya mengerti bahwa fokus itu ada di layar. Dan saya harus bagaimana kelihatan di layar itu cocok dengan karakter. Nah, itu sangat pengalamannya yang luar biasa.
And the musicians of Gamelan Sekar Jaya worked so hard to create some amazing, amazing music. I just loved the music that Pak Dewa was creating. He was composing all of these pieces just for every scene. He thought of exactly what was happening, what would the music need to be doing in order to support the dramatic kind of motion of that particular scene, which was incredible.
And all the people were so nice. All the dancers, the musicians, the tech people, the lighting designer, the set people. Everyone was so kind and so thoughtful. There were children at rehearsals, and they were well behaved. There was at least 35 to 40 of us in rehearsals. And I start to think, will I ever be in an ensemble like that again? Just really good people doing art for the right reason, because it's food for the soul. And I just really appreciated being there.